Study session, Mayor and City Council meeting 3 p.m. Wednesday, February 1st, 2023, City Hall Complex Chambers. I call meeting to order. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Vice Mayor?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 3, discussion item A, Border Master Plan. This is a plan that has been within the city for a couple of years now, and we're basically through ADOT looking at how we restructure it, or take points of elimination, or see how we go forward. In the audience, I know I have Mr. Jaime that's been involved, Ms. Allison, John, so from Port Authorities, anybody that has any comments, Chamber of Commerce has been involved. Anybody has any comments, feel free. The master plan was structured, before my days being up here, and I want to be open with it and see things that, what I saw is little details, on my perspective, like some pedestrian bridges and stuff like that. How do we proceed? How do we go with these? Are they things that are obsolete to the city now, or which ones do we give more priorities? What's the focus? John, if you have anything, or fill in the council how this is structured and was structured, and how we could look at it.
Sure, Mr.
Open to discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe a month or so back, I received an email from Ms. Gail Lewis asking us to look at the Border Master Plan and to evaluate whether the projects that are on this plan are still the priority or the desire of the council to remain on the Border Master Plan. ADOT came down with their consultant, Bill. You remember Bill? Bill, and I forget his last name. And we had a public hearing here in this room. A lot of members of the community were present. Bill Ferris were present. We're present. We're present. Yeah. A lot of members of the community were present, and they went over this list. However, the suggestion at the end of the meeting was that we brought this particular list back to the mayor and council for their review, and they requested it to receive in the first week of February back, Mr. Mayor, if you recall. But however, due to the electrical outage, we postponed the meeting till today. They're aware of the postponement. So this is our opportunity in a study session to go over the list of projects that are on the Border Master Plan, and to determine whether the council as a body would like to keep these projects on this list, or to reevaluate the list and maybe drop them off. That was a conversation that I had with you, Mr. Mayor, on this, and Judy just handed out the list that we have there, and then they're up on the screen. As you go through them and you have discussions and make some decisions on this list, if you let me know, I'll color code them, and then as soon as this first thing tomorrow, or as soon as I get a chance, I'll respond back to Gail Lewis on the council's decisions or findings. So however you would like to proceed, Mr. Mayor.
Jaime, would you like to give us a little bit of feedback on how these projects were identified and what's,
So the 21st century border master plan encompasses plans from Yuma, San Luis, Nogales, and Douglas, and a little bit north. I believe it's about 25 kilometers north of the border, where infrastructure projects are given from each community to ADOT, and in no particular order as far as what the importance is or the value of each plan. Some of these things that you see on the list were given by previous councils, even 10 years ago. But Douglas has that as well. San Luis has that, and Yuma has that as well. So this is just a remodel and a reconfiguration for ADOT's purposes and in how they help each community find the funding and actually the construction of some of these projects. I think some of these projects that are on the list that's in front of you are somewhat outdated. Some of them have already been completed. So it's up to you all to either cross them out, or you can also go as far as put them in order of importance to the city council. That doesn't mean that if you put it in importance of the city council, that doesn't mean that the funding is guaranteed in no way whatsoever. Funding is never guaranteed for any of these infrastructure projects, but it does help give guidance to ADOT for what every community feels is urgent. And you may classify them in different ways. Urgent, this needs to be, fixed now. You can classify them as, what is important but not urgent, or these are no longer important, these projects. So you can do them any way you want. I don't know what structure you would like to see this in. It go down line by line for every single one that's in there and discuss every single one. There's a few of them in there that I don't see that I think John will have to help with, because there needs to be a little bit more description in what the project was meant to be. I'm going to give you a quick example. There's one that says Western Avenue, I-19, and it's not clear in the description as to whether it's a widening or of the ramps, or is it a whole different ingress and egress from Western Avenue onto I-19. So just to give you an example, that was one that stood out to me that really needs a little bit more explanation. So, Mr. Mayor.
Rated.
Right. You rated them?
No.
Oh, yeah, they ate.
Right.
They've
already been weighed.
There is a system of a weighting system where ADOT gives a classification according to security, according to how much traffic, the traffic volume is, the importance of for if it's for a residential area, commercial area. It's just a rating based on your return on investment for ADOT that they do. Now, you as a council do your own rating, and what is important to you guys, maybe security is important to you all, whereas they didn't see it that way. And then together they come up with a border master plan for all the communities along the border. So you can go ahead any way you want, or do you have any questions?
yeah, going just starting from the top, City of Nogales, Crawford Street at Union Pacific Railroad, Nogales. Construction of the bridge, but
So I might be able to help with some of these projects.
Yeah,
Mayor, just because I have the knowledge. I think I was sitting in the audience when they talked about these a long time ago. Mm-hmm. When Jaime was in grade school. So the first plan, Mr. Mayor, was a pedestrian overpass plan or project idea that was talked about crossing over by Crawford Street. So there was discussions about building a pedestrian overpass that went from Crawford Street over Grand, over Morley, not over the railroad tracks, over Grand and over the railroad tracks and landing on Morley.
Okay. Go ahead.
John, I know that the Port Authority had a meeting up at the courthouse, and they were talking about the renovation of the Ticancini Port of Entry.
Yes, sir.
And some of these projects here, are they going to be affected by that?
Absolutely.
I think there's about 3 of them that are on the list that I told AT&T that they needed to kind of be put on hold because they definitely are going to be affected by the remodeling of Ticancini.
Okay.
So I told them that they would be very, very important. I told them that they would be very, very urgent projects, but that within the scope of the design of Ticancini, that they could probably be addressed there because they will affect the entrance and the exit of Nogales. I-19 will be affected as a federal highway, and as a state highway, and also, thank you, sir, and also Grand Avenue will be affected. I believe there's 3 different projects.
Do you recall those, Jaime? Maybe we could identify them right off the bat.
Well, I can show them to you.
He knows which ones.
I can show them as we go down. You're going to have the Crawford, the one south of Court Street, the one at the museum. There was actually a vehicle one discussed in here at the library.
Are you talking about the bridges?
Those are
Yes, sir. Bridges, vehicle bridges to cross the railroad tracks.
No, but I was talking to some of the road issues, like, for example, I-19 bus terminal to west, depending on what happens with the reconstruction of Ticancini, then the bus terminal is one of the things that I said, you push it toward the reconfiguration, because what happens with GSA and the remodeling of Ticancini is that they are only concerned with the footprint of the port of entry. Then we have to work as a community with ADOT to see how that footprint works for us as a community as an ingress and egress from I-19 and out of Nogales through I-19. So the bus terminal is one of those that I said within the concept of the design of Ticancini and how that ends up being, then that's when we start to work with ADOT for the bus terminal. That's one of the projects that I said. And then there's another one that says Arroyo Boulevard, Grand Avenue, I-19 to Ticancini LPOE. That's another one, which I'm not sure exactly what the original intent was for that one or what it was.
Which one is that one?
That's number, I think we should,
This one here?
number 8.
So is that the way council wants it? You want to just jump back and forth?
No.
Go down the list? Or how would you like to do this, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I wanted to identify the 3 that Jaime had in mind that he already talked to, ADOT.
Got it.
But
Remember the
do we-
time we can talk about them one at a time.
The interchange, so number 8 would be that one. Number 8? No, that's 77. Number 77.
That would be the first one, Jaime?
No,
Second
the
one.
first one would be 70, which is the I-19 bus terminal
Okay.
to West Street. Number 77, Ticancini, point of, that's it. And then Grand Avenue to I-19 interchange probably will end up changing as well with the reconfiguration of the port of entry. If you guys notice, Nogales Police Department has had tremendous issues from about 4 o'clock to about 7:30 at night, 8:30 at night, with Western Avenue being backed up and blocked all the way for southbound entrance. So that's another reason for the port of entry to actually get built, because we have such a congestion coming in from, it may not be anyone from Nogales, but it's people that are crossing to the border. It may be Nogalians as well. But the problem is now it's affecting Western Avenue, which is a major residential area, and it also leads to another industrial area. So I would probably put that one aside, along with the pot of important projects, but to be discussed once we get closer to the final design of the port of entry. I don't know, Mr. Mayor.
Which is discussed but not eliminated.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Very important.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the third one. And then number 87 seems to be repeated. Maybe I'm wrong because it also says Western Avenue. So I think 87 and 77, 87 and
82.
82. Man, I wish I could see.
So my memory of 87,
There you go.
my memory of 87 was there was talk about doing the improvements of the on and off ramps to Western Avenue.
And what was the other one?
And so which is the other one?
There's two that are concerning Western Avenue.
82 and 87.
This one here, 82 is Grand Avenue to I-19 on Western Avenue.
Repeated?
It's from Grand Avenue to I-19, and then it says Western Avenue.
What was Western
So
Avenue to be widened?
82 is the project is Western Avenue, right? From Grand Avenue to I-19. So the way it reads is Western Avenue from Grand all the way to I-19.
But is it to be widened?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's to widen it or to make it more capacity on there. Capacity improvements.
I have a
If you
question.
look at it right here, it's capacity improvements.
I have a question, Mr. Chamberlain. Do you have any conceptual designs or back in the day that they gave you or?
Actually, CBP, right now we just got $500,000 for the feasibility study for the port of entry. So within that concept, we start to see what it is that's actually needed, the throughput that needs to come through the community, the foot traffic, vehicular traffic, also the security issues. So that all comes within the feasibility study. It should be finished within about 18 months, but it all depends on the funding as well. I don't believe that the $500,000 will actually get us to the final feasibility. So I'd say maybe at least 2 years before we get anything like that. And then after that would be, once that gets approved, then you start with some concepts, designs, of which GSA and CBP have some, but they're very preliminary. In fact, I don't think they've even shared those with anybody yet because they're just very preliminary.
Okay. Now, what about, I thought basically on the new pedestrian bridges, there's some 3 items or like 5 items there where they have pedestrian bridges. There's one, near Nogales Public Library,
So, Mr. Mayor, the first 3, if I'm not mistaken, are pedestrian bridges.
Huh?
And then the library and the Roper Road are vehicular bridges.
Yeah, but like the one I mentioned, John, the one on Nogales Public Library, I don't think anybody travels around there walking.
The idea, I remember the conceptual idea on the vehicular bridge at the library was to build an on-ramp, right? That went over and it went down a portion of Terminal Street, that little street that's between the library and Food City, and because during the discussions, Mr. Mayor, the council was very interested in having some grade separation bridge that crossed the railroad track. So that was an area that was identified as a possible grade separation bridge, and it would end up on top of Morley and that where it's cut right there, and then come back down. The other bridge, Mr. Mayor, was the bridge that they talked about was coming off of behind Walmart.
Okay,
Behind Walmart and ending up on coming out through Roper Road, so you could have connectivity through Roper Road to Highway 82.
John, have we communicated anything like on these projects to the Union Pacific Railroad? Because since we're crossing over their property,
I'm sorry, Hector.
has the city communicated with the Union Pacific Railroad, on anticipating these projects?
Not that I'm aware of.
okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll repeat that. When these projects were discussed here, it was a long time ago. I don't even think Walmart was built yet, so that's dating it.
It was Kmart.
No, it was a hill. There was no Walmart. There were. So that's why I think that's why I think it's important that if we're going to have this on the border master plan, that we look at this as a community, right, and say, you know what, this bridge at the library, I think we want to move on to something more important for a bridge, or maybe mayor and council say, I think that is the most important project that there is. We need a bridge at the library.
Just to give, some overview or input, Ms. Danica from the library is here, and the other day we were talking about, how the back parking of the library is hardly used. So how much traffic will we have? Is there any merchants here from that area, Mr. Cara? Yeah, well, actually, it's still north from Food City, where the library is.
For me, I would say the bridge needed. That's where I think the biggest issue is.
Can you please come to the mic, or there goes the mic? Thank you. And, I appreciate this, it's basically an open discussion. We're trying to find solutions and trying to see what's better for the city.
What I was saying basically is, I don't think a bridge is really necessary there. I think it's more necessary in downtown where, the train is blocking the traffic and
Right before the, Cinderella, that crossway.
I think that's
probably be the major one.
Yeah, that's a major one that I think the other one is a secondary, but I think the primary is right there. So.
Okay, thank you, sir. Danica, any question? Danitza.
Not a bridge, just an easier way to get to the library since the parking in the front is just for like 5 cars. Just an easier way to get to that parking that's in the back that has a lot of parking spaces. That's the main concern right there. So not a bridge. We're good.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Montiel, you had something?
Yeah, Mr. Jara, have you ever seen this before, been part of a discussion in the last few years? You've
no.
been a merchant downtown for some time already.
No, I have never seen this.
No? Okay. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
No problem.
And, Ms. Montiel, like John said, probably none of us had seen it.
Yeah.
That's why we're discussing it and trying to look at, what can we do? What is open out there? So where do we continue? The pedestrians, maybe just leave the one on Court, which is probably the most important one, and basically, well, not Court. Which ones would that be, Johnny?
Mr. Mayor,
And eliminate the other ones.
maybe a good way of looking at this is by looking at this as a new pedestrian bridge south of Court Street that will work in conjunction with the port configuration and call it a day.
Yeah,
You
basically.
know, and get rid of all this
Yeah, we
other
can.
confusing stuff. And then we can name it that way because that what appears that the community is looking for. So we're looking for some type of pedestrian bridge to get over the railroad tracks, right? That's what the goal is. And then we're also looking at it, constructing or try to get one south of Court Street, unless, and
What's that
I think
little
that would
street?
work.
What's that little street name?
Court Street and then Park Street.
Park Street's the one next to the
Cinderella.
So then we're actually looking at probably Park Street.
Well, we should probably look at it as the footprint of the new port of entry comes in and put it in conjunction with that, because who knows what that's going to look like, right? So
Correct.
that's why I think maybe we should generalize it a little bit better and saying what we'd like to see in the border master plan would be a pedestrian overpass. You can even say in the downtown area of Nogales to access across the railroad track.
Ms. Montiel?
Well, also it's premature, right? Because we have to wait on the port, what DeConcini, when we start remodeling DeConcini.
Right.
No, I mean, it's a rhetorical question. I'm just thinking out loud on deciding the bridge over the railroad tracks.
Mr. Bojorquez?
Yes, Jaime, on the new upgrade of the Port of DeConcini, I know that currently they have a bridge that goes from Grand Avenue to Morley over the tracks. Do you think there's any plans of when the new port of entry is built that they will provide that?
Absolutely not. GSA, like I said before, GSA is concerned with the GSA footprint only of the port of entry. Anything beyond that, obviously we have an opportunity as a community to give our input and stuff with these things, but anything that is beyond their property is our responsibility to go after the funding with ADOT. And I can tell you, they know very clearly, because we've told them, that every single concept design for the new port of entry has significant challenges and significant changes to our downtown area. And I think that's why John is actually saying maybe anything and everything that has to do with downtown, maybe we can wait on that until we have a conceptual design, at least. Once we start with those conceptual designs, then that's when we start to say, okay, well, this works, this doesn't work. And then as a community, you come back and you say, hey, look, you know what, ADOT, what can be done, what can't be done, because this is going to be a problem. I think NPD and the fire department here have a tremendous input on what is to be done with those streets and those ingress and egresses for Nogales, because they're having a really, really tough time with traffic as it is right now. And we're talking about a design for a port of entry that could probably take us 8 to 10 more years, depending on the funding. That's what it took us, 9 years, John, for the last one. So I think that we're talking about something in the future here, and the downtown projects, doing a bridge right now and everything may make that investment, may make it a moot point.
Yeah.
And that we've lost out as a community our opportunity to look for those federal or state funding. So I think John may have a list of projects that maybe we can set aside into call it the Newport configuration. One other thing I wanted to tell the council is that any of these projects, if you let them aside and say that's not important for our community now, that doesn't mean that later on we can't come back to ADOT and say, hey, you know what? Now, because of our population changed or because of the new port of entry, we're going to start to see a lot of things that change that work for our community and some things that don't work for the community anymore. So that's why this is an opportunity to discard some things, put them into a basket where we may want to talk about them 5 years from now that are still very important, but put them aside, and then prioritize the ones that are the greatest value to the community, whether it's residential or whether it's commercial, whether it has to do with security or with capacity.
We don't, Mr. Chairman, like, we don't know. It's a good thing that I think it's a good idea just to set them aside for now. These projects, these bridges and stuff like that, because in reality, we don't know if, like Terrace Avenue, where the duty-free stuff, that might be gone, or how much of the beginning of Morley Avenue, perhaps. We don't know exactly how much of that is going to be taken up or what.
And remember, when you're looking for funding, it's always, the bottom line is always, what's the return on your investment? You don't want to waste your opportunities to look for, I don't know, $30, $40 million that we may need in infrastructure projects that surround the port of entry, and then say, hey, you know what? We built a pedestrian bridge and no one's using it. You know what I mean? You always have to think about what the return on investment is going to be. So, and it's kind of hard because you're thinking 10 years down the line, and it's hard to conceptualize a brand new port of entry that we've had since the 1970s. But I think that that's part of your job is to conceptualize that and see what's best for the community.
So when these were put on this list, it was just, what would you like to see?
Yeah.
It wasn't what's shovel ready, what makes sense, what's doable, what's engineered. They're not asking you, nobody's asking for us to engineer it.
Just open mind.
What makes sense in the city?
There's a lot of dreams on the
Yeah.
list.
Mr. Gradius.
Dreams. That's the same thing I was thinking. This is a great wish list, but I think we need to task our staff, fire, police, our engineer, planning and zoning to tackle this and narrow it down and bring back something that's a little more feasible that we can act on. Because, yeah, we're planning for the future, but a lot of the stuff that's in here is either unfeasible or will never get done. And the items that Mr. Chamberlain just expressed might be included in the new rebuild of the DeConcini port. So these things that we have here is a
that's
great
only
wish
one
list. We just got to work on it.
Yeah, that's only one of the deals up there.
You have a huge list.
I know, that's why, and there's 2
That's
pages.
only one.
And it starts on 62, so I'm wondering what happened from number 1 to 62.
Those were Douglas's.
All right.
Number 1 through Douglas.
Good thing, I thought we're missing all these.
And, you know, these parties were basically sent to everybody, and and I don't want to degrade anybody, but I know they're wish lists. They're maybe even if we decide to keep one or the other, we might even see it in our times. But the main thing is ADOT has confronted us and wanting to break it down and look at it and see what priorities we're going to give. And that's why I want to involve everybody and give me opinions and
So-
if you guys go down to the blue area,
That's what staff recommended right there in the blue.
those are you could say newly staffed recommendations that the input that they gave
Staff
to
already-
address.
Yeah, staff weighed in on this list, Mr. Gradius, and we put the question that ADOT had while they were developing their list with their consultant was they directed the mayor, right? Or they didn't direct the mayor, but they asked the mayor if he would convene his council in a study session, which he has done, to get your input on this list so he could report back to the consultant the will of the council on this list.
Just as a point of information, every other community has already submitted their wish list to ADOT. We are the last ones. They're being very considerate with us. They waited for us for over a month.
They didn't have a electrical outage.
Yeah, no, they didn't. But they've waited for us for a while. So every other community has submitted.
It should be an organized, prioritized list to be prioritized by the order of importance.
Mayor.
Mr. Chamberlain, is Douglas already, they're getting their port of entry remodel, right? They got like $600 million. or
They've
something
got a
like that?
two-port solution, much like ours. They're going to have 5 miles outside the city limits. They're going to have a new commercial port. And they are also going to be remodeling their downtown port of entry. It's about a $400 million remodel. But I have to tell you, the connector roads that go to the new port of entry, the new commercial port, that's outside the scope of the $400 million. The city of Douglas and Cochise County are still looking for funding for the connector roads with ADOT, in which they're in a very favorable place. But because when you look as a community, when ADOT sees the requests and says, okay, this is this project, which is connected to this connector road, is already funded, then they're very quick to find the funding for what your needs are. That's why whatever problems we have from Western Avenue to I-19, whatever problems we have on capacity from Grand Avenue to the port of entry, that's why I think once we have the feasibility study and the conceptual design, and then we actually get funded for the port of entry in DeConcini, then that's when the real work starts with anything and everything that surrounds it with ADOT. But when they see that funding, then they're very much more forward-looking and they're very much more active in helping that community. They are bending over backwards for Douglas to find the monies for those connector roads, because it's not just one, right, John? It's several. And they're connector roads that have to be, sufficient for commercial traffic, much like ours.
So there is, Mayor, may I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so there is some urgency, right, Jaime, in getting
Yeah.
this together?
Yes.
We're about 6 weeks behind.
6 weeks, no más?
That's okay.
Okay.
This list has
They're
already
patient.
been shared with them.
No, I realize that.
Right.
But
So
there's
the-
some urgency in submitting this list.
So this list has already been submitted to them for consideration to incorporate into their master border plan. If you guys take no action today and just say, you know what, John, we're done with this list, that's what's going to come
That's
out
what's
of the
gonna
border
come.
master plan. This is an opportunity for us to modify this list if you want, or do something with this list.
Or just give,
It's already been sent back to them.
if you guys see something that
Right,
has a priority on this list.
Correct.
And for us to let them know, hey, the crossing or the Grand Avenue Western traffic light, is that a priority?
so this.
Bring it up.
This list was sent over to the mayor, and there was a request to have a public meeting on this list. It was put up on the wall, had the tables here. I believe the mayor, you were here.
I was here and
Chamberlain was here. I don't remember if the members of the council were present or not.
Initial committee that they
Right.
had, so.
That's who was here.
Committee of people, then you take it back to your respective group, so the mayor is bringing it back.
Back to you all.
Thanks.
Yes, sir, Mr. Gradius.
On this list that you have, the color coded, you said this was staff recommendation is a priority, the blue. What's the yellow?
So the blue was staff's recommendation to put on the list,
To put
not
on, but it's
necessarily
not a priority. So
prioritize.
it'd be up to us to prioritize any,
If
well, not
you want to.
prioritize because Mr. Chamberlain.
I'm not, to be quite honest with you.
You don't have
and maybe Mr. Chamberlain or Allison could weigh in on this. I'm not sure how important it is for the border master plan to prioritize this list.
You don't have
They're shaking their head. No, I think it's more important to get the projects on the list.
Yeah.
Not so much to prioritize them.
I think what they really want is to say, hey, you know what, Nogales, what's really important to you out of these 30 projects, 40 projects? What's really, really important to you?
And it could be all.
What can we set aside? You want to submit them all just exactly the way they are? Do you want some more clarification to those or not? I did something really, really easy. I went back and I sent an email to Gail Lewis. I said, in my opinion, number 62, and I identified the project just in an email. I said it was I-19 Western Avenue. I put more detail needed, but most likely will be needed in the future, not as a priority, but will need it as a future. I went down the list. I did my own email. I don't know if you guys want to do the same thing individually and send each one of your emails to Gail Lewis, and they will compile all that information and figure out what exactly did Nogales want, right? Or each council member, what exactly? Because I gave my opinions, right? So on the bridges, on the pedestrian bridges, my thought has always been, okay, what's the value of the pedestrian bridges and how much do people use them? There's obviously a value right now on Park Street, which is Karam, which is what Mr. Jada was talking about. There's obviously a value to that, but it also kind of should wait to see what is going to happen, like what Mr. Bonilla said on Terrace Avenue, and what is going to happen to the entrance. I can tell you that the port of entry is going to be pushed back at least 200 yards into the city of Nogales. The biggest problem that we have with the port of entry is that it sits on the international boundary line, and it is a countrywide security issue that it sits on the international boundary line. Lanes 1 and lane 2 are right underneath the communication center, brains of CBP. So that's one of the reasons. So it will most likely look very much like Mariposa, where the actual port of entry, there is a buffer zone, and Terrace will most likely be that buffer zone, and all of those buildings and that street may also be taken at that point in time. So, but then there's other really important things that I saw there, the industrial park loop. So I know that Mr. Guerra and the city are working on, and I think you've already secured funding for part of that. But if there's more of that, then that explanation for that needs to be put on and submitted if there's more of that, or if you need more funding for industrial park loop. I don't know, Mr. Kissinger.
I would leave industrial park loop on there.
Elsa?
I think when opportunity.
Jaime, can you take your mic, please? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mike.
Just for everybody's, like also just the way to think about this and for efficiency. So you do have the list that was pulled out and prioritized from the staff. And I think another thing you could do is to say, okay, well, what of the things not on that list, are there things we really want on that list? You don't have to say this is more important than that, or, well, but this one, but only if we finish these other 5 first. You could just say, hey, we forgot about this one. Can we add it back to the list that we want to do? Or, hey, by the way, number whatever, we already did that, so you can delete it. I know some of the work that the committee did was we just went through and said, these 5 have been done, so take them off. They were put on the plan, the first time it was done, which was 10 years ago.
Like 20 here, Allison, that can come off, right?
Right.
Pretty obvious. That
Right. So things like that were deleted. So this is really just kind of a way. I mean, they took like everything you could throw at the wall, everything you've ever wanted. So now you have like your blue chunk of stuff that's prioritized. Are there things that you see that you're like, I don't know why we ever put that on there. I'm glad we're not going to prioritize it. Or, hey, this is really important to me. This is important to, the people that elected me. And I think we should have this be part of our list. So that might just make it a little easier. So you don't have to look at each project and say, well, do we have design or do we not, or this? Like none of that stuff matters. It's just, what do we want and what's not on the list right now that we want?
Who's doing this? Because whoever did this is important. So
John,
what's that?
John.
You mean change the color?
No. That project done.
I know. That's why I kind of changed the color, because that might be something that council would consider to take off the list because 189 is done.
What's done?
Right? It makes sense to take it off the list, right? I mean, that's an easy one, right? And I don't know if the new bridge that goes over from Walmart to connect through Roper Road and connect to 82 is something that this council, that our council would want to be on this list. I know Mr. Chamberlain's dying to have that on the list, right, Mr. Chamberlain?
I don't think he wants all that traffic.
Through Roper Road. Like I said, this was developed a long time ago. Can't turn off my mic.
Are you okay with this?
So I don't know if that's something you want me to take.
One thing I did want to add on there too is this entire list, and as well as the projects for San Luis and the projects for Douglas, are all online for anybody to see and consult them. So just for reference, there is a page off of ADOT that you can go on there and see these. So that updated list would be nice. So then those projects, and it actually shows you the exact location of that project, of where it is on the map. So it's one nice thing to see with the ADOT system.
Like 108 down, all the way, basically 108, 110, 111, 12, 13, 14, you know, all the way down. Even 163 are basically sidewalks, bike paths and stuff like that, you know. It all depends on the street.
By the way,
Yes, sir.
on sidewalks, I put extreme importance
Oh, yes.
on sidewalks. I'm not a biker, so I didn't necessarily
tell.
prioritize bike lanes. I could tell. But I have been called by 1,000 bikers here in Nogales. I didn't realize so many people biked. It is extremely important to have some bike lanes somewhere. I know that we made efforts to make bike lanes along Grand Avenue, and we were shut down completely by Union Pacific, and they will not allow it. And what they will allow will cost so much money. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So there are other areas like Frank Reed Road that are proposed, and some other areas for bike paths that are proposed. And I think you already have some funding for that, and you don't want to let that funding go because you might lose it this year. So I think that, you know, there's some really, really great projects there. I put all sidewalks need to be improved, especially in the areas that are identified here. Baffert Drive to Country Club, I mean, all along
So if we look
Grand
at
Avenue.
number 21 here, it's project, line 21, project 99, it's the Calle Sonora North Hohokam intersection. That's always been problematic for the city because the trucks get backed up there and there's a problem. But I believe that one's addressed in the new proposed one here for the city, number 43, the Sonora Bridge. So the Sonora Bridge that the city is proposing addresses this one up here, 99.
99.
Right? So we have it almost like if it's duplicated there. So my suggestion to mayor and council would probably to drop off number 21 and leave the other proposed one on the list. So my suggestion would be to drop off number 99, right? The Calle Sonora Hohokam interchange, because it's addressed in this one that doesn't have a number because it's brand new, the Sonora Bridge.
43.
The realignment, well, it's line, it's kind of confusing. It's the line of the Excel, but the number is 99.
Oh, I know, that's right.
Mr. Guerra, can you get the mic, please?
I think that project that you are talking about is the connection of the end of Calle Sonora with SR 82. So was another project requested by the public in the past.
No, this one right here, number 99, Juan. If we look at
Right
it,
in the
if we
next
look at it
column.
closely, it's Calle Sonora.
Through Ghost Town?
Yeah.
No,
Through the.
okay. So this one is widened roadway and bridge improvements for the intersection of Calle Sonora at Hohokam. That's what number 99 reads. Did you see that? Number 99, Calle Sonora at Hohokam. right? Nothing to do with 82, Juan. And it's a capacity. And what the project talks about is widening the roadway and the bridge to improve that intersection.
Okay, the number 108 is the one that, okay, no roadway, okay.
Yeah, that's a different one. Right now, we're on this one, Juan.
What happens, John, is in between 99 and 108 on the sheet, it says connecting SR 82 to proposal loop of east, which I think they deleted a line there, but left the line in the project limits.
Okay, yeah,
I think that's what it is.
that's correct, I'm sorry. The other one too that we can remove, Mr. Mayor, is the pedestrian pathway that we have already under design, which are project number 264 and 305.
So I'm going to mark this one like this little red, just so I can try to keep track of what's going on.
The yellow ones or orange ones?
The orange.
Mayor?
264 and 305.
Are those already on work? Under design? Okay. You have funding for full construction starting tomorrow? Hey, you have the funding, what are we waiting for?
Just the timing that we have to follow the process.
So what's the next step?
I will be presenting another change order. That is for the design of the pedestrian pathway on Patagonia Highway. We estimated to be 180 the cost of the engineering, and the selected the selected consultant is asking 200 and something thousand. So the city is committed to pay 5.3%. So we'll be paying about 8,000 more for the design.
Okay.
So we'll be presenting in front of you the next month a change order for the design.
But you said we have the funding for the construction of it?
We have the federal government will pay 93.7% of the total cost for design and construction.
Nice.
Is that, which project are you talking about?
That one, Patagonia Highway.
All right.
And then Grand Avenue, that is the name, but we end up deviating the project to only Front Reed because as Mr. Chamberlain was saying, Union Pacific didn't allow us to put anything there.
So number 34 is already in the works, so we could probably drop it off the list, right?
Not till it's built.
Not till it's completed.
I wouldn't drop it. Right, Jaime? Good recommendation? Yeah.
Another bucket, another bucket.
But I wouldn't drop it till it's
Okay, leave it
finalized.
on the list. And,
Yes.
And so the Grand Avenue, this one, half of it's funded, the Frank Reed portion of this, but along Grand Avenue, on the railroad side of Grand Avenue, we have no plans to seek funding or to try to build sidewalks because we ran into a roadblock with Union Pacific.
Okay.
So we can modify this one, take it off the list, do something. No,
Mayor?
it's unfeasible to have it on the railroad side. They basically, no.
Give me 1 second, Councilman Bodilla. What's the big story, so the council knows, how on the railroad side, I think, what's the street? Not, is it Baffert to the end of, Meadow Hills or the entrance of Meadow Hills? What's the issue on areas where we can put sidewalks on the east side of Grand Avenue? How, what areas,
I can help.
how close, can this, there's areas where, like, we're going to Frank Reed, and right there, it gets very close to the Grand Avenue, but there's areas where it's far away. Is there a limit, or what do you guys have as feedback for the council on knowledge on that.
I can help with that, Mr. Mayor. So where the railroad tracks runs adjacent to Grand Avenue, you remember what the easement is?
Technically, all Grand Avenue belongs to Union Pacific.
Not technically, that's not true. Not all of Grand Avenue, fine.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, but that's not
Yeah.
what you're trying to say.
It's an easement again.
Okay, Union Pacific has granted ADOT access to build a road on their property, which encompasses a lot of Grand Avenue, especially from Doe Street, all the way down to past Calle Sonora now in that area. So ADOT allows, Union Pacific allows ADOT to have a roadway in their right of way. So if you want to build something there, you're not asking ADOT for permission to build a sidewalk. You're asking Union Pacific. And Union Pacific is very uncooperative with having sidewalks or any pedestrians at or near their railroad tracks. That's why that initial idea of building sidewalks on the east side of Grand Avenue from Bafford Drive to Frank Reed came off the project list, and we have to reevaluate that and put it on the west side. I hope that answers the question, but ADOT doesn't own all of Grand Avenue, but a good portion of it.
I think what it comes down to is just what's easier for the council to decide on. Look, you can go and fight, till you're blue in the face and probably for the next 7 councils to fight with, Union Pacific for east side sidewalks. It won't happen. But it is more feasible to do them on the west side.
Correct.
And, there's a tremendous value to the community to have sidewalks from Doe Street to Country Club, which is number 37 there, 5-foot concrete sidewalks. That is an incredibly valuable project that will, not be easy, but, because you're asking for some of the easements, but it's a lot easier than trying to ask them for the east side.
37 it's more feasible to use 37 and eliminate 35.
Correct.
And I think at the time when they were dreaming this up, they didn't have the knowledge that we have today, where the railroad says, no way, no how, it's not going to happen.
Right. Let me just, Country Club Drive drainage improvements, just lately, we had the director of ADOT, John Halakowski, went out there to take a look at this at the request of Mayor Maldonado and at the request of many citizens from Country Club. So this is something that is being addressed right now by the head engineer for ADOT. That's something that's, who knows what the solution is going to be for that, but it's been looked at and taken to the highest level of ADOT. This one here, for example, Country Club Frontage Road Roundabout, probably one of the worst residential / commercial intersections that we have in the whole community, just because of the volume that we have that goes through there. Now, it is put as a roundabout. Is that a solution? Is it not a solution? A lot of you use the roundabout that we have on Mariposa. Some people like them. Some people don't like them. Whatever this may come out of this, I think you specifically need, input, community input from the residents that use it every day, and also the owners of the businesses that are connected to and right next to on Frontage Road. But it's extremely important. How that looks once you submit it, well, it's up to you all. But for example, it should be put on, but needs to be investigated much more.
And there's been a lot of complaints on especially the heavy trucks, which I don't think have the room to do the roundabout on the truck.
Right, and that's why I said, it's addressed as a roundabout, but it may not work out that way after you talk to, all the residents and the business owners. It may not be a roundabout. It may just be a much larger intersection. It could be an intersection with a stoplight as well. And just because you have the schools there and that much, and a large residential area, and it also, on frontage road, I would assume we are looking at frontage road being much more congested in the near future as well, just because of the volume of the industrial parks that are being built on the west side of the frontage road. Doesn't include the east side frontage road. So this will become a huge, huge problem for our community. It is already an urgent problem to be addressed because it's extremely dangerous. It's a four-way stop. It's a two-way stop. Some people stop, some people don't. And then you've got like Grand Avenue Crawford improvements down here that's in blue from West Street to Grand Avenue. That may also, you may want to put that in the pile for the port of entry to be looked at later. I don't know if that's an urgency or not.
Should be in another pile.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in regards to the Country Club Drive and Frontage Road runabout, ADA expended already in the design of the runabout, and for that particular project, there were public meetings, and then also they secured the Army Corps of Engineers permit to improve the area and improve the drainage in that intersection. So they have a shovel-ready project that was removed from their list a few years ago, but they were ready for construction, and for some reason they didn't fund that project. So that project would be an easy project for us because it's a shovel-ready and secure all the FEMA and Army Corps of Engineers permit there. That's why it's good to put it there.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Bonilla.
John or Mr. Chamberlain, do you remember if when this list was being done, when you enter Baffert Drive, the road that you keep going when you cross the tracks and you go down, it's produce, what's that road? Produce Terminal, yeah. Well, they put a big old warehouse now, and now it's really causing more issues.
No, it's not Produce Row. That one is Baffert Drive from Grand Avenue all the way to the school. It goes it's Baffert Drive all the way. I know exactly where it used to be WP Market, right? Yeah. Okay, I agree with you. That's why one of the Fresh Produce Association, why we've always really, really pushed, and we paid for the feasibility study for 4 bridges, which were Sonora Bridge, Baffert Bridge, Produce Row, and Gold Hill bridges.
Right here.
Those 4 bridges, pretty much all 3 of them connect to major residential areas, along with heavy commercial areas. Since that was paid for by the Fresh Produce Association and given to the city, I believe that was about 6 or 7 years ago. Since then, there has been a tremendous more building and more activity, commercial-wise, on Sonora, because Hohokam has become bigger, on Baffert, because not just that improvement, but 7 other improvements on buildings there, and Produce Row and Gold Hill have also become much more impactful to the community on a security standpoint as well, and a safety standpoint, not just a capacity. But I think that those 4 bridges, the widening, and I think there should be an explanation, it's a widening of those bridges. Like Mr. Guerra and I have spoken before, they're not at risk of falling down. What they're at risk of is becoming not being able to handle the volume that is on those bridges now. There are a tremendous amount of accidents. Gold Hill Road in front of Mario Villas and going up to Vista del Cielo, very, very dangerous. Sonora going into Monte Carlo and Baffert going into Monte Carlo also are
You have
very,
to
very
break, you have to
dangerous.
stop for the trailers when they're coming out. If you're going into Baffert, you have to stop, let the trailers make the turn, and then they take almost a quarter of the bridge for them to clear the turn. And sometimes these trailers are waiting there for a while because not a lot of people stop.
Right.
I've literally witnessed semi trucks on Gold Hill lose their tires and go up onto the side of the bridge because they don't have room to make turns. All the vehicles have to go backwards or run the red light to allow the semi trucks to go through.
Mr. Diaz's towing truck company has taken a lot of trucks off of the rails on Gold Hill and also on Sonora. And we're lucky we have those because on Produce Row, we have no rails on the sides. It's open. It's only a 12-inch curb that separates cars and trucks from going inside the arroyo now. So those, as far as a value are concerned, they've always been a tremendous return on investment to residential areas and to commercial properties as well.
And we have feasibility studies done on all four of these bridges. I know shared them on many occasions with council, and we can dust them off and get them to you all. We have those done, paid for by the Fresh Produce Association via the overweight fees.
Yes, and
So actually, the city wrote the check for it, but
council, on those four bridges, I think those four bridges are extremely important, basically, the one that least has the accidents is West Produce Road, but it's because it's a straighter line. It doesn't have a turn into it, but it's still very necessary. I travel through that bridge, 2-3 times a week, but all four bridges need the safety, and I think that's the biggest concern. Those four bridges are safety hazards for, our truck drivers, our community, our, constituents driving in the city.
And I remember, Mayor, I read that report. I think, Mr. Kinzer, you gave it to me. I think back then, Mr. Chamberlain, it would cost like 11 million or something like that for all four.
At the
or
time,
something like
it was about 11 or 12 million. I don't know, give or take a couple million. Probably now it's about 20 million. But it's not only that, it's working with the Army Corps of Engineers and, ADOT, it doesn't fall into ADOT, so it falls straight onto the lap of the city of Nogales. But ADOT could possibly help us with design, and we could probably ask them for some of those things, some of the outside costs that there are that are attributed to this. But, those design studies, those feasibility studies, they're old now. Everything, Mr. Guerra asks for money for $2 million for a mile of road, and in 2023 monies, it only pays for half a mile, right, Mr. Guerra? So it's difficult. You have to update these feasibility studies because the costs are so inflated now.
Number 42 is my understanding that we're looking at doing frontage road connection to I-19 from Mount Harrison, because that's where it ends. So it basically it's an improvement also to the country club roundabout issues. So if traffic's coming out of Coronado School wants to go south, this would help alleviate that, give them more options to go south. I think this is a typo where it says East Frontage.
That's the one also coming in through Meadow Hills, right?
What I like to just point out is I think we need to change the E frontage to West Frontage on this one. I know, there is no such thing. So I think this is just a typo when somebody put East.
West Frontage Road right there, coming into the roundabout where we just talked about.
One of the ideas is to take it all to Frank Reed.
I'm not sure if you guys have ever thrown out to ADOT about putting an on-ramp on right there on Meadow Hills.
So that was discussed about 15 years ago, the on-ramp, off-ramp, Meadow Hills. And I think that that's what conflated a lot of the discussion was exactly, well, what do you want, right? And at the end of the day, I think ADOT said, you know what, I don't think that the community has decided on what they want.
Right.
But what you want is to be able to have more throughput, right? You need to be able to put more cars, more, and at the least amount of cost. So a roundabout right there at the intersection, is that going to be better than actually what Mr. Kissinger's idea is, to push the frontage road all the way to Frank Reed? To cut the frontage road all the way to Frank Reed, instead of stopping at the right-hand turn right there where Coronado School is, continue that whole frontage road. Is that going to be better for the community? Do we put more cars through that? And is it safer than actually doing something like a roundabout, which at the time was already said yes, right?
I really believe that it will be a combination. The runabout is for making.
And then Mike, thank you.
The runabout is needed for the circulation and on any direction that they want to go. And then the connection of that road with the I-19 or the Friendly Road is an additional option. So.
No matter what you guys decide, I think you need more input from that residential area and those commercial property owners.
I could tell you at the time when they discussed off-ramps and on-ramps at the intersection of Country Club and I-19, the majority of the residents in the Meadow Hills area were adamantly opposed. They love their wetlands, they love their birding. They didn't want to see a gas station on the corner there.
I believe at the time you lived in the area, so you were leading the opposition, isn't it correct?
But, just a thought, has it, I know coming down from Coronado School, before you hit the frontage road, there is like a option to take a right, which is a dead end. You never know, put the on-ramp right there, and that would, how much traffic would it take away from coming into the supposedly the loop?
So just to give you an idea.
Would they do just an on-ramp and not an off-ramp?
Well, it all depends on what you need. Obviously, feasibility studies need to be put in and stuff need to be looked at, and what is the actual throughput for the community. But I can tell you that any interchange like that, so at the Fresh Produce Association and the Port Authority, we've been pushing for interchanges at Ruby Road and Rio Rico Drive for years, right? And we've been looking at also extending the extensions of frontage roads west to hit the Rio Rico gas station. That way, that would alleviate all those cars that go to that school and drop off their kids. That way, they wouldn't have to go back onto the Ruby Road bridge. So we've been looking at that now for about 12 years, and we still are. We have a good design. We've already decided on a design for that area. Now it's the funding that takes a lot of time. But I can tell you, Mr. Mayor, that any of those interchanges, you're talking about what originally we had thought was about 17 million. We're looking at now close to $30 million. So when we started talking about 12 years ago. So the proposal for on-ramps, off-ramps, a lot of the trend in highway is now to get away with that, and less cost would be to extend frontage and get rid of a lot of traffic that way. But if it's only one-way traffic, then you run into what we already have on Rio Rico and Ruby Road issue. So it has to be a frontage that is both ways. And that is a little bit more complex.
Yeah.
It's not feasible.
I think you wore it out. I thought you wore it out.
Battery's there.
So council, just from listening to everybody and thanks for everybody being involved in the discussion. That's what it takes, I think we could turn it in like this and obviously, is there certain items that we want to give priority that we want to send ADOT the message? What do you guys see? Is it the bridges? Is it the changing the bikes path to the west side of the Grand Avenue? Like Mr. Guerra said, we have the ones in orange already in the process. What else is there that we want to do? Like explained earlier, we don't want to definitely remove any of the 70, 77, 82, 87, and 95. Actually, 95, we said it has already been done. Which one you pointing out?
113, 114, 117, 119. Just wondering if Mr. Kissinger has an explanation. Not sure what these are.
Those are bike paths, bicycle and pedestrian.
All bike paths.
Yeah, from 108 through 263 are basically on the City of Nogales bicycle and pedestrian master plan.
Yeah, to show it to you, I have to bring it.
Mr. Guerra, can you get the mic, please?
Yeah. If anyone wants to know more about each of these projects, this has been through many different studies funded by ADA. At the right column, there is the link where there is the study done and might be a location map and a description of each of the projects.
Go ahead, Ms. Montiel.
Yeah, one of my priorities is, just by looking at this, is definitely the bridges. And it's a huge safety concern, but it's on the list.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
kind of listening to the conversation, I'm thinking maybe we can put the
I
top
hear you,
three, the top three yellow, not yellow. It's pretty bad, huh? The top three green one that I have here, maybe combining them all to one and putting in the notes pending the reconfiguration of the port. And
Yes.
Setting it back to it that way. These two here, take them off the list, right?
And
Yes, because 99 is redundant, you could say.
99 and 90.
And then
97,
this one down here,
260.
either rewrite it or take it off the list and put west side, but it's redundant to the one down here, so just take it off the list. Would be my
Okay.
suggestion. And then submit it.
Then submit it with, maybe, do we give priority on the bridges or?
Like I said, I don't think.
They don't go by that, basically.
Right.
It's on the list and what can we do and what's feasible
Right, that'll all come later.
with the money. Okay,
Does that make sense that we do that?
Yeah.
And I'll give it to you, Mr. Mayor, so you can send it back as they
Okay.
requested you to do.
any other comments from council or anybody in the audience? I really appreciate all this conversation. That's what it takes. Thank you. Council, anybody?
Just thank you, Mr. Chamberlain and the Port Authority and Fresh Produce and Mr. Jada left and everyone else that came to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
You guys are good with,
Any other comments or questions, John, or there's more? Jaime? Appreciate it. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate your guys' input on this. Yep. Thank you. Then you guys want to take a break or you go item B?
5 minute break.
5-minute break.
Thank you.
We're going to continue with discussion item B, which is city council goals of fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. Basically, put this on the agenda to discuss, the items that we want to look into, just thoughts of mine are, the cleanliness of our city, the lighting, equipment to service our city, parks with, look at what else can we do and what other recreational things we could do. I've talked to the county on maybe partnering up on the park idea, which was brought up 4 or 5 years, where the city would support the county in maintaining some parks, and they would take the cost of what their maintenance is. Another thing is I've talked to our Parks and Rec director, Ms. Travers, on looking into paddleball or pickleball places, which one would be maybe the Meadow Hills tennis courts can be created into the pickleball or paddleball. And then again, I've talked to the county on walk paths, can be again in the Meadow Hills areas and other areas, I think we gotta collaborate and get together with the county and talk about the do's and don'ts that we can, but I think if we work together, we could do a lot more things, both ways. Any other comments from anybody in the council?
Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Turn on your mic, please.
Yes, Mayor, I'm glad you're following up on that, working together with the county. We can accomplish a lot more, and of course, less expenditure for the city if we combine our efforts, and hopefully we can both put the same amount of money into the pot. But as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the things that we discussed back then when I was in charge of the administration, and you were very helpful in that, and I hope that now I can be of some support to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment anything? Nope. Okay. As for the budget, we have Mr. Dickey, can you bring us up on the budget for 2024? 2023, 24.
It's fiscal year 24, but 2023, 2024. I was just looking to start us, because we're staff starting to work on the budget. It'd be nice to have kind of the council's goals, things that you thought, maybe you'd like us to look at in the budget to see if we can incorporate it. So what we'd do, we would take those ideas, kind of what the mayor just said, some of these, and maybe some of it needs to be budgeted for a certain project or whatever. So we'd bring it back when we have our budget workshop and go over those and show you guys what our budget is, what our shortfalls are, if there's any, or what our revenue is and what we can do. So it's just kind of a jump start to get going before we have that meeting. Because at that meeting last year when I was here, it was my first budget with y'all. That was when the ideas came out and some thoughts came, and we had already been going in the budget a little longer, so it kind of put us back a bit. So this is kind of just getting ahead of the curve, starting the budget process a little earlier than usual. So, like, for instance, someone might want us to be more proactive economic development. One of you might want a certain road and need a little more attention on. Like the mayor said, collaborate more with the county. That's kind of a policy thing, but also there could be some projects we work out with them. Walking paths and some of those. So I'm making a list of whatever it is. We'll bring it back when we start with Gene, putting these items in the budget if they're monetary, if we need to put some money behind them. That's the whole thought of council goals. If there's goals you have that you think should go into the budget or be considered. So they're going to be in. You guys as a group will approve the budget. So you may have some that you prioritize and say, we're kind of short. Maybe we don't need to do that this year, or maybe we don't want that.
And my thought was not wait till, April, May, June, because, when we do our budget for June, give it a start, start thinking about how we want to use our funds, give it a start on what does the community ask for, what business owners, what do they want to see the city come forward with? What's the city, us as a representative, where do we want to go? And I think together we could make a budget that will be more, you could say, have the better eyes of the whole community, and we could work together on doing that, but I want to make my biggest commitment is getting everybody involved, getting our directors involved, getting our community involved, getting, what do we need? Like I said, I've met with every director as of last Tuesday, and, they know that it's not just them, it's their employees, it's their, we want to hear from everybody. We want to have, what are my goals? Like I said, cleaning up the city, lighting up the city, is it getting more equipment to service the community? Where do we lack in something? Do we lack in use of, picking up trash or debris from the trees? Do we lack of recreational things for everybody to spend their Sundays and Saturdays or even a weekday in the afternoon? Is it just pathways for bicycles? Is it pathways for walking? I've talked to plenty of people on developing murals and cleaning up our parks and stuff like that. Just let's do things that people see that we are doing our diligence in making a beautiful city and make it something that everybody can do on the afternoons, on the weekends. So, like I said, I wanted to bring it up and, for your thoughts and look at it. And, we could bring it up discussions on any other session, but I think we don't have time to waste in waiting until June. We got to start now. Okay, Mr. Bojorquez, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Dickey. I know that the mayor and council will be involved in the budget process in April, at the end of April, right? When are the directors starting their process?
Now, we've started.
You started
They've been
already?
given direction to get back and get their numbers together and stuff. I want to coordinate or collaborate with the council. I want to include the council at the beginning instead of bringing you in April when we do the workshop. So I think it's good to kind of get your ideas, your thoughts. Don't need them tonight. If you still want to go back and talk to some people, just email me and we'll get them in. Gina and I will get them in because you're all going to see when we have the budget workshop. Okay, you're gonna approve the budget. You're gonna say, hey, we don't know if we want that. So you're all going to be able to work on it, look at it. But I'd like to have it in early. So when we meet, it's just all there instead of getting it then and then going back and having to come back. It just puts us a little farther ahead and it gets the council involved a lot earlier.
So you're saying that right now that the directors are in the process of making their list for the budget?
Yeah, but so there's certain things that they're asked to do, and right now they're asked to kind of look at their numbers as far as their positions and that, and if they think they're going to ask for more, or they don't need this much, or they need that, or whatever. So they're starting now to work on it. We're going to have our first meeting. I don't have the budget calendar with me. I should have brought that, but we're going to have our first meeting here pretty soon. I know we meet next Thursday. That'll be a meeting that we talk about the budget. So we want to be prepared on April, I think it was 27th, 28th, that Thursday, Friday. We want to be prepared and include the council's goals so we can go over those and see and have the numbers pretty much here's the budget, here's where we're at, what do we want to do? here's our fund balance. This is how much we're putting back to the fund balance. This is how much maybe we need to take from this fund balance. And that's the budget's your guys' baby. We're going to just give you the numbers and you guys will get to decide where we go from there. But yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, I know you requested our goals list from each one of us, which was a great idea, and I'm sure everybody submitted something. Were you able to compile a list, and can we get copies of that so that we can all discuss and get on, maybe define each one of those so that we can present to staff so they can work off of that? That would make it easier for them as far as council goals.
Okay, let's do that, Judy. We'll get all those submissions and put them together so everybody knows what everybody was requesting. Okay, and any council person that has not turned in any goals or anything, please submit them so we're all involved. Okay, Mrs. Montiel?
Okay, I have a couple of questions so that I could be clear. Mr. Dickey, so these ARPA monies list, these are...
That's the next item.
What?
That's the next item.
What?
We're talking budget.
Well, no, I'm still, it's going to be related to B, don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's related to it. When you talk about goals, are you also including, obviously you're including this information you've given us, the ARPA funds and so forth. So that could be a goal.
Absolutely. If you guys have
Exactly.
a goal to use
that's why
ARPA a
I'm
different way or something, yes, that's part of a goal. Mhm.
Okay, all right.
And we're going to discuss that next too, that
Yeah.
you can bring it up. But yes,
Yeah.
that can be a goal. Like I would like ARPA funds to be more to this or to
Oh, yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
have an idea, but I wanted to make sure that was part of what
Absolutely.
you were asking.
Absolutely.
Bueno, thank you.
I want to get my child on my back and saying wrong subject.
It's related.
Related
Okay. Thank you.
Perfectly. That was a
perfectly to the budget discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So let's get all those submissions, anybody, directors, please follow up with Mr. Dickey and getting your budgets, developed. And like I said, there's things that we need in more importance than others, but I think if we start off right now, we'll be ahead of the game, and we'll be able to come out and make a better plan than we have in the past. Okay, thank you.
One more.
Go ahead.
Is there any way, Mr. Machado, maybe this is a question legally, that we can involve the community directly and hear from them?
Well, I imagine we're going to do all of this study sessions and stuff, so
it'll be open to the public.
it'll be open, and they can have input at that time.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Ornea?
Mayor, those, I think it was 10 items or something like that you requested from each council member. Is just a general idea or the whole completed project? Because there's some that I have, but if I have to submit them now, they're not going to be quite completed because I need to sit down with Mr. Dick and Mr. Kissinger and but just a general idea of what.
Yes, it's basically general ideas. Obviously, we got to look at what's available with funding and stuff like that. But I want to involve everybody in being inside the loop of the communication. And, no idea is a bad idea. Worst ideas are not the ones that are not brought up. And that's what I want to do, You might have a very expensive idea, but it's a great idea, I think just by bringing it up, it'd be, something to think about, maybe not for now, but maybe in years to come, but just write them up. Let's look at them and see what we could do.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to say Tavo wanted a zoo bigger than San Diego Zoo. That probably won't fly, Tavo.
be a circus for all the town.
Good call. Good comeback.
Mark clowns the size of the circus.
San
Okay.
Diego Zoo.
No, but, but in general, directors, your feedback is very important, and library, parks, streets, fire, police, everything. Let's work on it. Okay. Anybody have any other comments? Okay. Thank you. And now we'll move into the ARPA funds. On these, I'll just give you my quick notes. It's a thing that we got to look at, where, how, we could use these funds. Obviously, we have till 2024 to use them. What was that? 27, 24?
27.
27?
A little longer than we first thought.
Okay, but let's look at it, at how, each department's gonna use them, and if there's $5 or $1,000 or, $10,000 left on one department, let's see what we gotta do. I know, just for thoughts, this new work that's gonna be done on the IOI is gonna be very hard on the business owners on downtown. And, keep it in mind, I think, maybe support some of the local businesses downtown, how we could do it, what we can do, think about it. But I think, I know was it Saturday, John, or Friday last week, you met with the people of SAC, on trying to make availability parking, because at first it was going to be almost zero parking around Morley Avenue. I think we solved a little bit of that issue, but I think we got to have a little bit of heart for those businesses and see what we could support them with. And then the time frame. Thank you for correcting me. It's 27, but I think the need is now. The need is now, and so we got to think on what to use it, how to use it, and wisely. Again, open to discussion to anybody. Mr. Bonilla.
Mayor, are you talking about helping these businesses out as far as like giving them some type of money because the business are obviously going to be impacted with all the those external hoses and bypass and all that? Is that what you're proposing with the ARPA money, or?
I'm proposing to throw out any idea if it's
okay.
If it's support with their water bill, if it's support with financial, we gotta look what we can. Legal, please look into that. I want to make sure, because I've heard, there's been loans, there's been other cities and towns and that have done apparently misuses of funds, and that's the last thing I want to do. How can we do it? What can we do if Mr. Dickey, Mr. Machado come up, give us what we can and what we can't do. On how we could do it. If it's, like I said, if it's discounts on utilities, which is for us, it's basically water and sewer. If it's discounts on their business license for that area, and that I want to make clear, that area right now, because of the situation, obviously, it'd be a wish list to help everybody, but right now I think that area is going to go through some unexpected issues due to the construction or the rehabilitation of the IOI. So let's look at it and see what we could come up with that we all agree upon.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just to go over the sheet that you guys received, that's what's been, that was the direction, the order that was passed by the previous council and some of them on the council. That this is what staff has now in their mind that they have available. I just want you to know if, so probably the P and Z would be the one economic development that would probably be able to figure out how and what to do with the businesses. Is if that's enough. I mean, we can go with these numbers, or you guys can say, hey, we think we need to put more money there. I know the police used a big change of theirs, but they still have some left over. I think Chief would be willing, you know, if someone else needed it a little bit more. I don't know if he's thinking of some other way to use it or something, but maybe some of that goes to P and Z. So there's, it's what, however you guys want. It's whatever you guys, so there's new needs, there's new ideas. If you want to keep it the same, I can instruct Sam, kind of how we did, and we talked to him too, and John and I, we looked it over, and with Gene on how to do, you know, different things with the utilities or whatever for the businesses to help them out. Just there's different ways and different things we can do. We're just looking for direction now with the new council.
Okay, Mr. Gradillas.
Quick question for Mr. Machado specifically. Is it legal to use said ARPA funds for a non-COVID relief issue? This is not related to COVID. It's a rehabilitation of the IOI.
I can't give you a specific answer yet because we'd have to look. I have to look to see exactly what they're allowed, the permissible uses are. But it's always been my understanding that it's pretty broad. The uses, permissible uses are pretty broad. So, I mean, I just want to make absolutely sure before I tell you that. But I think we can at least for now go along with that idea that it's pretty broad. And as far as let me, if I may, Mr. Dickey. Whatever the funds are that are left and are not encumbered, legally encumbered, they're up to reallocation if you decided that, and that's what we're working on.
Yep.
Whatever you guys decide to do with that.
Mr. Doyle.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I think you're hitting it on the nail, Mr. Machado, and I think it's, you know, COVID is one of the things that keeps people ill. I mean, there's other things that come in if you get COVID, and the repair of the IOI is very, very crucial and important for the health of this community, because if we have ruptures or, you know, spills that cause contamination or more germs in the airborne, people that have had COVID are more susceptible to any kind of disease or any kind of things that are airborne. So I would consider that, I think that's an important issue that we able to put some money into that, and also, of course, into our parks and everything, because that keeps people doing their exercise and breathing hopefully good fresh air. That was just wanted to touch a little bit.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Dickey.
I just want to point out too, you can see one of the departments, Parks Department has put in kind of what they're looking at and how they'll use the ARPA funds. So that's kind of an example, and I'm sure each department has kind of looked at ways. I know the fire department's looked at ways they could use theirs. And there is certain things you can and cannot use them on. And I think what we're talking about will work, but there's other things that aren't. And Joe and Jean will be the ones to determine that. Jean's read through it, and she has a pretty good idea what we can and cannot use the funds for.
Okay, and thank you, Ms. Travers, for turning this in. But, you know, it's some things that we got to look into as, you know, as a council, and see what are the needs and go by priorities and stuff like that. But we'll take them under consideration. Mr. Bojorquez?
Question on this list of projects, proposed projects from Ms. Travers. There's one that says repair bathrooms at Techea. Isn't that included in the project that we're to renovate?
No, unfortunately, the restrooms were never included in any of the original plans. I went back and looked back to 3 years ago, never did they include the bathrooms. Because I guess they were remodeled maybe about 10 years ago. So they never included that in the project.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, if I may, Mayor?
Go ahead, Diego.
Timing is perfect. It's everyone's going to submit the wish list, the project list, the priorities. We're getting on the budget. It's perfect timing. What the projects are that are being requested will be included in the budget. Some of it may be budgeted through the budgeting process, and others may be budgeted fully or partially with the ARPA funds. So, I mean, it's perfect timing.
Go ahead,
Question, so we
Ms.
can move
Montiel.
on. I know that there's a general plan that the voters voted on, Mr. Machado. And do we have to also, or does it behoove us to ensure that we are aligning these needs to the general plan that the voters voted on?
You mean the general?
The general plan that was voted on 2019?
Are we talking about the zoning plan?
No,
No.
general plan.
I'm not aware of what
Yeah,
was
yeah.
contained in it.
Well, Mr. Dickey, can you
Yeah,
answer?
yeah. The answer to that is that's one of the things that we proposed in the beginning. Quite a while ago, was Sam put together kind of a plan to use ARPA that coordinated or with the general plan. It was a really good plan, but at the time, council wasn't quite sure how they wanted to use in that, so we got to where we're at now. So yeah, absolutely, we can do the same thing, look at it again with your guys' ideas of what you'd want it to be used for, and do the same thing. I just want you to remind council that staff will not spend any ARPA funds. All ARPA funds you guys are going to approve, okay? All of them. We're going to bring it to you. And I think there's 2 orders tonight, or 2 change orders that are asking for use of ARPA funds. Those will be in the streets, I believe. So so there is, before you tonight, there's going to be a request to use some ARPA funds.
Yes. Anybody else? No. So, I think for as far as discussion, we pretty much all know, what to look at. We could mix in the general fund plan or the general plan to see what directors are looking at and guide us through that, and then come up with a spending plan on the ARPA. Okay, and legal and Mr. Dickey, you guys could get us back on the how, when, or what we could do with if we do the support to the area of construction of the IOI right now, or the rehabilitation of the IOI. Let's see how we could support our business owners around that area if we can, and then look at it. With that said, if there's no more comments, I would like to move to adjourn this meeting. Any motion? Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.